Your Partner in Success Radio is a free business podcast with host Denise Griffiths. It's all about great stories, conversation, and context to help you move your business and life forward with actionable tips and advice from her guest experts. To listen and subscribe, just find us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you consume your podcasts.
Good morning and welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio, where top performers share their secrets to help you achieve your personal and professional goals. I am your host, Denise Griffiths, and together with my incredible guests, we bring you inspiring and actionable insights to help you take your life and your business to the next level. Ranked in the top 2% globally, this podcast is really a must listen. So let's dive in. And today I am joined by Elliot and Dominic Chapman, two entrepreneurial brothers who have taken the business world by storm over the last few years. And together they have built a group of successful agencies across the UK and the US through a combination of growth and strategic acquisitions. The agencies operate under Chapman Capital and include a business-to-business growth, B2B growth agency that has worked with some of the world's largest tech brands, a podcast booking agency, that's how they wound up here, that has booked guests in over 2,200 podcast episodes with 700 hosts, a TV ad agency in London, and a full-service marketing agency. And I have to tell you, I had written out a whole bunch of stuff about Elliot to introduce him and then to introduce Dominic. And I figured rather than you having to listen to me that I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves because these are fascinating guys. So Elliot, if you would, start talking.
Start talking. Denise, thank you so much for having us on. So I'm Elliot. I am one half of Chapman Capital alongside brother, half decent friend, and business partner, probably in those orders because I'd have to say that because our parents do listen. And Dom and I started working together about 5 years ago-ish, Dom, something around then, when we both had a similar problem. I was running an IT management consultancy, which was the family business at the time, and we struggled to acquire new customers. We struggled to get in the room with with our right prospects, and it was a really, really challenging sell. And Dom's half of the story will intertwine with my half. But Dom and I essentially worked together to create a solution, which accidentally turned out to be our first business. We both planned our exit from our two respective businesses, and wound up starting Social Chaps, which is the B2B growth agency that you referred to in your wonderful intro there. And that was our very first sort of foray into working together as brothers, and also growing an agency, which has now turned into our lives.
And you're very young, both of you.
Thank you. I don't often get told that.
That's because there's no video on now.
You wouldn't be able to know who was the oldest and who was the youngest if the video was on. But we are reasonably.
I have a picture of you, and I can't tell. I thought you were twins, even though I knew that you were. So,
well, that's backfired, hasn't it, Dom?
Yeah, because that's now an insult on me. So,
But you both are quite young. Before I get too far away from myself, but you're both quite young to have the history that you have in business. And Dominic, tell us about you.
Yeah, so I started my first business when I was 19 years old. Sort of fell into starting a business, which was a design agency. So we worked with a few decent businesses within the UK, decent sized businesses. And help them with sort of design, mobile, and video production. So really working on sort of a number of projects. And then myself and the co-founder at the time, we wanted to go into the world of tech. And as two very young, naive individuals, we thought we could disrupt the recruitment world. So we started a recruitment technology platform, raised a seed round of investment, launched the platform, And then again, this is where mine and Elle's stories intertwine. We sort of shared an office in Bournemouth, and we had this money and we invested a little bit in other marketing agencies, and we got nothing in terms of customers onto the platform. So I sort of went into the world, and I had Elle to lean on from a sales perspective, and my business partner at the time from a sort of a creative perspective. And we put together this system that allowed us to sort of build relationships at scale, which is sort of where the B2B lead generation agency was born. So we tested and iterated within Stemx, the business at the time. We were able to scale that. So we worked with some, the likes of Shazam, Tommy Hilfiger, and ran all of their video recruitment online globally for them. We then used that within Elle's business in the consulting business, and it worked again. I then exited my business and Elle shortly after. And we sort of then stumbled into the agency world, having been on the side of it where we didn't have the best experiences, which is sort of ironic now because we run a number of agencies, but I guess having the experience on the other side of it, we know how it feels. And I guess, yeah, now we're here.
You guys don't sleep much, do you?
Sleep very well, actually.
I was going to say, I sleep like a baby.
Sleep like a baby every night. I look forward to bed. We've got to be quite strategic in sort of our working day. We're up early. We're talking, normally messaging and communicating by sort of 6:30, 7 o'clock. But there is, I guess, this is where the relationship it does go deeper than just business partners, in that we are pushing each other on both in our personal lives. So making sure that we are committing to exercise, making sure that we're committing to, good diets, making sure we're pushing ourselves with personal challenges as well. Because otherwise, I think we both agree that we're not going to be in a position to bring our best selves on a day-to-day basis. So we do genuinely sleep well because we cram an awful lot into the days. But at the same time, we, Friday afternoons, you probably won't get an awful lot out of us. And we do genuinely switch off over the weekend and use that time to fully recharge. So I think externally it might look quite intense, but it certainly feels manageable on the inside. Most weeks anyway.
I understand. I try to do the same thing, but I get a kick out of people who say, "Oh, I sleep like a baby." Babies wake up every 45 minutes or 2 hours.
That's true.
Tell people you sleep like a teenager. You can vacuum over them. They don't budge. So.
Yeah, I've got a 5-year-old. I definitely don't sleep like a baby. That is, you're quite right.
Listen, before we get, too far into me asking you just oddball questions, there were 3 things that I wanted to ask you about. And one was unveiling the ideal partnership, which is basically mastering the craft of selecting your co-founder. I think so many of us have trouble with that. Mm-hmm. And then the second one was organizing the chaos, which I really love, streamlining your business to B2B business with 5 essential strategies. Those are important. And then power moves, using your acquisitions to surpass the 1 million revenue milestone. So you guys start wherever you want to go, and I will just listen and take lots and lots of notes because I want to do what you do.
Cool. All right. So let's start with the relationship. So Dom and I can speak from experience of, I'd like to say we've got this relationship right because it's worked up to this point. And there's a couple of things that we do well, and we've learned from our previous business relationships. So the first is this does help that we are brothers, but we've got a deep, innate trust in each other, in that we know that we are always aligned. And whenever we're not aligned, there'll be a message, typically late at night, which says, we need to speak first thing in the morning, we're not aligned. And it doesn't need to be severe, it doesn't need to be a difficult conversation. It is whenever you've got 2 founders coming at it from typically slightly different angles, you've got different motivators, you've got different goals in life, often the balance of power is slightly wrong. So we've got a deep trust that we're both aligned, we're both working towards the same mission. we are quite literally blood. So if there's ever a disagreement, I know exactly how to approach that, because we spent our first 15 years of our lives fighting. I mean, literally throwing each other off of sofas, pretending to be WWE wrestlers. So that gives you a foundation of trust, that we know how each other thinks. We know almost what each other's next move is before the other person does. So we can second guess what the other's doing. And therefore we know how to deliver good news and bad news. So Dom knows how to get the best out of me, and vice versa. Other people will probably find that a little bit more challenging. I know that the team that we work with, often struggle to be on the same wavelength as Dom and I, but we've had the advantage of, whilst not directly, but working together, whether it be playing video games, whether it be playing sport, whether it be whatever it is, we've been working together and building this relationship for 27, 28 years. So I feel like we do have an advantage there. Dom, feel the same?
Yeah, I completely feel the same. I just, for people listening, obviously that is something we're blessed and very lucky with. I think going and finding a business partner, sometimes you're not going to get all of those things. And I think we've obviously both had business partners where it hasn't quite worked to the same level. And I think the sort of the takeaways that we can take, from other relationships is finding people who, one, completely complement you. So, you're not doing the same thing. So a lot of agency owners will go into business with someone else who, they're both specialists at Facebook ads. Let's team up. That's no good, because when one of you needs to get stuck in with sales or stuck in with finance, neither of you want to pick it up, because you both be wanting to do delivery. Whereas obviously me and Elle have this relationship where we come at things with completely different skills. So that's really important, is finding a co-founder who's going to complement you and support you in what you are, and vice versa. For me, that's one. The other is finding someone who knows when to drop their ego, which is a massive thing with business owners and co-founders. They can derail situations that could have quite easily been, a manageable situation, just because it wasn't their decision or someone said something slightly wrong, and they completely derail situations. Again, me and Elle are very lucky that we've seen that happen with other co-founders, and we do not want to be those people where the team feel like they can't come to you, or you feel nervous going into a conversation because you don't know how they're going to react. I'm trying to think of a few other things, but I think it's just recognizing the red flags early on and accepting that, if they're going to be like that, it's hard to change someone. And there's enough people out there. It's similar advice to relationships, ironically.
That is ironic. Definitely don't take a relationship advice off of you, but we do have a live example of we do have a live example of, I guess, how we do leave our egos aside. So quite clearly, Dom and I have very different skill sets. If it's not already come across, Dom is much more technically gifted than I could ever dream of being. And I much prefer the finance side of the business, the operational side of the business, and the sales side of the business. Despite that, and despite clearly having two very different roles, we will always have the same job title. And we do that so that from people looking from the outside in, there is no hierarchy. Whilst one of us may make a decision without the other's approval in a certain area of the business, what we want for the team, what we want for people looking in, is that Dom and I are united and there is no hierarchy. Dom's not the boss and I'm not the boss. We are collectively making decisions, and we are literally 50-50 on everything in our lives. So that is a conscious decision, which, granted, is unusual to get a joint CEO of a business or an agency, but it is something that we are very, very conscious of.
Well, and that makes sense. And Dom, you said something, everything you were talking about with, co-founders also, in my view, applies to teams as well. And so you said something that really grabbed my attention because, look, I'm a web developer by trade. I do my podcasting because I love it. And I get to meet people like you from all over the world. This is not my business, however. And I have a team. I've had many of the same team members for a lot of years. But I found out pretty early on that I was my own bottleneck because I was not hiring people who did something better than I did or did something different than I did. Now, all that to say, I don't ever ask any of them to do something that I can't actually do myself, but they're specialists. I'm not. I don't have time to keep up on all of that stuff. I'm a nerd in stilettos. I am techie. If I tried to keep up with all of the changes that go on in my world, I wouldn't be here. It'd be over. I'd be probably dead, tired. I don't know, but get out of your own way. Don't be your own bottleneck is what I'm taking from you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as a business owner, you do end up becoming a bit of a generalist, understanding enough to make the decisions and be in the conversation, but you shouldn't be the one holding all the information
Exactly.
across the business.
That's exactly right. And that's what I was trying to say in a less elegant fashion. So thank you.
I think that's probably the first time Dom's ever been called elegant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm glad I could help. So what else? I mean, we're talking about mastering the craft of, selecting your co-founder. I'm sure that y'all have run into people that are coming to you and saying, y'all make it look seamless. Can you advise us? Which you're kind of doing right now.
Yeah, I guess in a sort of a roundabout way, we are doing that. I think the key thing is we had this conversation with a client the other day. We got them or advised them to write down their skill sets, but also this is really important. Write down what you actually want to do, because as Dom said, as an owner of the business or a founder of a business, you typically do start doing everything. And if we're honest about it, not everything is that exciting. You do lean towards the things that you genuinely like doing. And what happens at the start of a relationship, so if you were to get into bed with a co-founder, you would probably be trying to impress them. And you would probably be saying, yeah, I can do that. I can do that, despite it not being your forte or maybe even something that you want to do long term. I think a level of honesty around what you actually want to do, what actually excites you, is as important as writing down your characteristics and then trying to marry up, the perfect co-founder. And the other part around Dom, Dom also mentioned sort of ego and leaving that at the door. It's huge, and you need to have somebody that actually sits there and compliments you. So making sure that you've got enough about you to say, listen, this is what I'm not very good at, will, in my book, give you more credibility than trying to blag it or trying to pull the wool over somebody's eyes. So advice is write down characteristics and write down and be very honest about what you actually do want to do on a day-to-day basis, because that is, for me, more important than the skill set.
Exactly. Don't write down everything you can do.
No.
I mean, that's the worst thing. But by the time you've written down page 3, you're tired.
Yeah. And
you don't even want to work with you. I mean, you're sick of yourself already.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're starting to annoy everybody because you can do everything. But the reality is we could all probably do most things within a business. But the difference between being able to do it and wanting to do it, it's about, would you get up on a Saturday morning and do, something that you hate doing? Well, of course you wouldn't. So the same needs to be applied sort of Monday through Friday for you to genuinely get enjoyment out of your job. And that is, whilst a lot of the time it gets lost, we should be enjoying what we do. Otherwise, what is the point?
Well, you lose passion and you lose interest. So when somebody comes to you and you gave them terrific advice, and I wrote that down, excuse me, I'm losing my voice today. But what do you tell people when they come to you and say, look, we're at a stalemate. We can't stand each other anymore. And I've seen that happen.
Dom is definitely best place to advise.
Yeah, I personally think it's accepting it's okay to move on and not be business partners. And I don't think every relationship works out forever. Um, if you can figure it out and go deeper under why it's not working. But a lot of the time, it's because of difference in sort of vision or where you want to take the business, more than, how hard your co-founder's working or you're working 10% harder. Those things I think are minor and can be worked out. I think if it's I want to take the business in this direction and this person wants to take it in this direction, then you've got to work it out, either by going, look, this isn't working. Let's split the business up. I'm going to take it. You take this, or dig deeper and figure out how it works. Get an advisor in, get a third party opinion, for someone to say, look, you boys you've got the same vision, you want the same thing, but you're just saying different things. It's very difficult, with a co-founder. Sometimes, really trying to sell when they've got sell your vision when they've got it so tunnel visioned in their head what they want it to be. Sometimes they just won't sway away from it, and I've seen it as well. Almost too rigid.
Right. And I wanted to ask you too, and I mean, you mentioned working with your parents, I think, and you're working together. And I have interviewed on this podcast multiple times people who were part of generational family businesses, and they basically speak the same way you two do. It's family. They're going to work it out. And, they stay in touch. They're not going, hey, I don't like you anymore. Don't come to Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blood is thicker than water. Families are a lot of the time built on principles, which is why I think working with family is easier, in my opinion. And a lot of people we speak to, they open with, I could never work with my brother, or I could never work with my sister. I could never work with my parents. Well, the reality is you probably could. The thought of it definitely seems worse than what it is. For me, it's a blessing because I've got somebody who understands me better than anybody else in the world. And therefore, I don't need to, if I don't bring my best self or I'm not feeling great, it's an easy conversation. It's, there's no expectation. Dom knows what I'm capable of. He knows that I'll turn up when needed, and he knows the skill set. So for me, it's an absolute blessing to be with family because there's nobody else that knows you better. There's nobody else that knows you for who you are better than blood.
Yeah, and I think goes back to the trusting as well, which is when you find it in a business partner. When we're disagreeing and I'm saying something which is completely different to Elle, he knows I'm saying it from a place of I want the best for both of us, not I want the best for myself. And when you find that in a business partner where he or she is making that decision, for the better of the business and the better for the both of you, and not a sole decision, it relieves a lot of pressure in a situation. And sometimes you have to be the first one in that situation to do that, to sort of lead the way on it.
I have to say, I really admire the way you two speak of each other. Yeah, it's refreshing. It really, really is. So thank you. I really appreciate you being here.
You're welcome.
Enjoying it.
It's the reality is, as founders, that you don't get many of these opportunities to actually just Dom and I, if we were sat next to each other, we wouldn't be talking like this, obviously. So this is a nice opportunity to just to remind each other of why we do this. And we are doing this, we're not doing this solely for ourselves, we're doing it for each other as well and for our families. And that's what we're trying to build. So it's a nice little reminder for the both of us.
Well, I'm thoroughly enjoying the conversation. So I wanted to move on to my next question, which was, I don't know if it's a question or a statement or whatever it is, but streamlining your B2B business with 5 essential strategies. Strategies are critical. You can't just wake up and go, hey, I'm going to build a business today. I've tried that. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I think so from the top, it massively depends where you are in your business, because from starting a business to, your first, say you get to $10,000 a month or $20,000 a month, that's a completely different beast and business to when you get to 70, 80,000, and even I'd say every 20, 30,000 in you add per month, the business is going to change. And we always say sort of 0 to 10, 0 to 20. Don't worry about automating it. It shouldn't be around automation. It should be all around building relationships with people, understanding the service you're delivering, and delivering the best possible service with as much of, as many customer interactions as you possibly can. Once you've got to that point and you need to build up, then it's, taking a moment to look at the business and go, what can be automated, right? Let's look at the onboarding a customer. Can that email be automated? Can that contract be automated? Can I automate the task from this to here? Once you've done that, maybe you can eke out another, I'd say 10,000 a month in terms of revenue. And then it's looking to bring people in who can take the important things off your plate. And again, it goes back to Elle's point, which is writing down, what's taking up your time, what are the things you're not enjoying, and hiring great people who can take that off your plate. I know they're not proven. I know they're not, like individual strategies, but it really depends on where someone is in their journey. Now, I don't know if you have anything to
yeah, well, I just want to go on. I just want to highlight something that we believe, which is the first thing that you were talking about around product market fit. I think Dom and I see all too often people trying to perfect their delivery, perfect what they're trying to sell before they've even sold it. And they're trying to perfect a solution that they don't even know that people want. The camp that we sit in is sell the service at a heavily discounted price, so that you can say something along the lines of, this is a brand new product, brand new service. I need 5 new customers where I'm going to be testing out this brand new product. You can get it at essentially at cost. In 3 months' time, this service is going to be 3,000 a month. I'm now selling it to the first 5 customers for 1,000 a month, in return for case studies, in return for whatever it is, right? In that period, you set the tone that you are going to be fine-tuning the delivery, and you will find 5 customers that are happy to do that. So therefore, you've created a space where you're being paid, you're covering your costs, you've got the bandwidth to be able to break the service and fix the service, because that's really, really important. And you, at the end of it, will have 5 case studies, which will validate the next 10, 15, 20 sales. What we see is people holding back selling, trying to perfect a service or a solution in the background, which is probably going to break anyway, even after you spend months trying to perfect it. So what we do with any new product is we launch it, we sell it quick, we sell it cheap, we sell it at cost. And we're quite transparent around the fact that we've delivered this. We've got an idea as to how we're going to deliver this, but you are our guinea pig. And for that, we will do it at cost. You'll get a service that in 3 months' time is going to be 3 times as much. And we're happy to honor the price in return for a case study, and you'll get results. So
And
find that.
you're right. I come across these things from people I know, or people I may not even know. But because I understand what they're doing, and I understand that, I can watch it grow or not grow, I'm probably going to join.
Yep. People love being a part of that journey, and they are happy to, so long as you don't break and ruin their company, which I can't see happening. Particularly if you're selling a service, people are happy to go on that growth journey with you. Particularly people or companies, maybe smaller companies, or companies are happy to help and happy to take a punt, much more so than people realize. So sell quick and find product market fit quite quickly. Give yourself those 3 to 6 months to fine tune the service whilst also being paid. And beyond that, you can quite quickly get an agency to 10, 20 grand a month without really having to do too much selling, in my opinion.
Well, and the thing is that once people understand what you're doing and they're in there and they're watching and they're learning, they're going to stick with you for the long term. I do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
you can put together we did this in one of the businesses where after those 3 months and it works, you incentivize the initial 5 customers to say, listen, if you bring me 2 customers, I will keep you on this same rate for the next 6 months. So straight away you can go from 5 and you can essentially double your revenue by not even having to sell, by bringing referrals through the door. So there's things that you can do quite quickly to sell quick, find product market fit. And then once you get to those sort of 20,000 a month ish, then you need to look to automate some of the stuff that you don't want to do. And beyond, I would say the 30-ish a month mark, you need to really build and hire well.
And basically what you're saying is create a product. It's a good product. It's an honest product, whether it's a service or a product. They've got you because you're the face of it. They can talk with you, chat with you, learn more, but you also make them your raving fans and they will help you.
Yep, exactly that.
Massively.
Exactly that. And people will go above and beyond, like particularly in the business world. If you are honest and authentic about what you're trying to do, people buy into that. We're human, but we're human beings. We love that.
Yeah, and also if you over deliver, it's quite rare, I'd say, to over deliver in the B2B world. So if you can do that, then they won't just be your fans; they'll refer you in. They'll be proud. If you're part of a service, I always introduce people that I'm working with if they're great at their craft, because it's so rare to find people who are out and out doing the best work they possibly can every single day.
And that goes back to what you were talking about earlier about connecting and networking. And networking to me is, look, I'm a highly committed introvert. I fully intend to die in my sleep at 100, still plotting world domination, but nobody's ever seen me. I'm an introvert. But, when you meet up with people, I get to meet you. You're in the UK. I'm in Southwest Louisiana. I'll never meet you in my local Walmart. But I feel like you have so much to offer to my audience, and I will highly recommend you. And people do this all the time. And in the podcast industry, and I wanted to talk with you about that as well. I've been doing this for 15 years. That's a long time. That's elderly in the podcast industry. But every week, I am sending your information to somebody else going, you need to talk with these guys. You have got to get them on your show. I mean, it doesn't make sense to keep you close to my chest and never tell anybody about you.
No, absolutely not. And it's one of the reasons me and Elle always go back to is sort of why we've grown, the way we have, and it's all goes back to the relationships that we've built. And a lot of the relationships we've built in the business world of 7, 8 years old through multiple different businesses, we've brought people along with us. And if you can see an opportunity where someone needs a service, then why stand in the way, and why not network and make those introductions? We always sort of try our very best to continuously make introductions where we can. If we have a new client come on board, on the onboarding call, we'll jump on. Any other issues in the business, then we'll try and find someone, because there's always going to be someone in our network who can support them with it. So it's just continuously making those connections, and not enough people do it, in my opinion. And it's not a hard thing to do, make those introductions.
It really isn't, and it should be done all the time. One of my very dear friends is a man called Ben Gay the Third, and he is known as a living sales legend. And I don't know if y'all know who Dr. Napoleon Hill is, um, but everybody has read his books. I mean, Think and Grow Rich and Dr. Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
Well, Ben Gay, who is my co-host each Wednesday, was the final mentee of Dr. Napoleon Hill.
Wow.
And I know he tells some great stories, but the thing is, he will share. He has what he calls an invisible Rolodex. People who know Ben or know of Ben know that they can call him and say, do you have anybody you can recommend for this? And he does without fail.
Yeah.
He learned
Massively.
that from Napoleon Hill. Be out there, be kind to people and help where you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not, funny enough, I'm not big on sort of networking events. I find it like too quick,
either.
too
No.
too quick fire. I'm not outgoing enough for those sort of introductory meetings. I don't get anything from it. But one thing I do is, so I moved to Manchester at the start of the year for 6 months up in the north of England, and before I even got there, I was reaching out to founders on LinkedIn and CEOs and going, look, moving to Manchester, would love to grab a coffee, share anything. If I can support, I will. And a number of different relationships have come from that. And it's just those simple little things that you can do is, if you're a business owner, trying to get away from working in the business and on the business and on your network is so key. That's sort of why we don't necessarily try and work in the business on Fridays, is so that we can network, we can meet people, we can have conversations. And that's what our Fridays are for, is sort of networking, but obviously not going to your networking events.
No, and what you're talking about sounds perfectly rational and doable. Networking events, I don't know. I'm not going to stand around in a crowd, because I don't do crowds, with a cup of really bad wine in my hand, somebody trying to shake the other hand. I don't like to be touched. It's not for me. I'll be right here on my podcast.
Sure. And starting a podcast or doing some content online. These are also great ways to network. It doesn't have to be in person coffees, breakfasts. I mean, that's what we've done for years now. But we also do, jump on these podcasts. We do collaboration on content and partnerships online as well. And it's just making sure once you've got that relationship, and they're in your network, it's continuously nurturing it. So we always, every few months, I'll reach out to everyone on WhatsApp. Anything that I can do, it's just a check-in, and just
Giving value
on that journey. Yeah, bringing value where we can.
And that makes perfect sense. Listen, you don't have to be an introvert, an extrovert, and whatever you want to be, but you do need to connect with people, however you're going to do it, and do it with empathy, kindness, and compassion. It's really all you need. So if somebody grabs me, by the virtual collar and won't let go, and they're demanding my attention, I will never speak to you again. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about, and I did want to go to using acquisitions, but since we're talking about podcasting, which to me is marketing 101 these days, many people run to YouTube. Look, I go to YouTube when my refrigerator breaks or my cat starts yelling at me or something. You can hear him. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Good timing.
He's a 20-pound ginger. He wants to know what we're talking about. But, I go to YouTube because I want to fix something or I have a question about something. People go to podcasts for not necessarily because they want to fix something, but they want to learn something.
And that's exactly why, for us, when we started out on this acquisition journey, and we were presented the opportunity to acquire Speak on Podcasts, we knew that this was one of the biggest mediums coming, or sort of today, but also in the future. it's not just audio. Like obviously this podcast is audio only, but a lot of podcasts have a video element as well, whether that be just through Zoom or whether it be through, a recorded episode where the content is repurposed or across socials, or whether it be, an interview that's actually published fully on YouTube. This can be dressed up in so many different ways, from not only just educational, but informative, fun, lighthearted. It is taking over what is traditionally you'd watch television, or you'd sit down and relax on a Friday evening, you put your feet up and you'd watch, normal cable telly. The younger generation are going onto YouTube because they can watch whatever they want right now. And they can get value from it. They can be educated. They can get their laughs, their humor. So for us, when we were presented the opportunity to have a conversation with Mark and Jakob, who are the previous owners of Speak On Podcasts, we saw it as a huge opportunity, because that is the way the world is going. It is.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And they say I've been doing this for 15 years, and the reason I do it, and anybody who listens to me knows that I am a highly committed introvert. I'm not shy, and I actually don't have any filters, which can be dangerous when I'm in the grocery store and irritated. But it's just, I started this because, and like say 15 years ago, I'm a web developer. But there are no pictures of me on the internet. There never have been, never will be. I read 1984 when I was a kid, scared the bejeebers out of me. And I'm an intensely private person. My privacy is very important to me. But somewhere along the line, and I know who they are still. I was, still in touch with them on Facebook. I got invited to a podcast. I didn't know it was a podcast. I thought we were just doing an audio interview they were going to transcribe and put on their blog. And then she sent me the link to it, and I said, wait a minute. Wait, what was that? So I called her and I said, what in the world? What did you do? It's a podcast. And that was it. I was done. I had to go do it.
Fell in love.
It's like, I can get my voice heard. I can meet people from all over the world. This is fascinating.
Yeah, and so Dom and I started our own podcast a few years ago now. Dom, when was it? 2018?
2019.
So we had a number of different guests on. The reason we stopped was probably like a lot of people who start a podcast, the time and effort required, because we only wanted to do in-person podcasts. It was very, very intense. And obviously we were trying to get a business off the ground. We'd just both exited, trying to get Social Chaps off the ground. So we decided to put a pin in it and hit pause. But what we did realize, having gone through that experience and having recorded 20 or so episodes, we saw the value of podcasting, not only from who you meet and who you network and the relationships that you can build, but also the content that you can then create off the back of it, the value that you can bring off the back of doing a podcast. So again, we, when we were presented this opportunity to acquire SOP, it was one that we wanted to grab with both hands, because the form of medium that is podcasting is huge, and it's only going to grow. I think the video side of things is only going to grow. You look at some of the biggest podcasts in the world now, they all have their own studio. They'll all have a team of between 5 and 20 people producing this on a week-to-week basis. They are huge media network shows, or the equivalent of. And it's only going to get bigger.
It is.
I think I'm sorry, Dom. I immediately thought of Joe Rogan. Who doesn't know who Joe Rogan is?
Exactly.
And I think it's interesting from a business owner's point of view, which route you want to go down as well, because you can start a podcast, or you can do what we're doing, which is podcast guesting, which is going on a sort of podcast tour, where you go and speak on 10, 15, 20 different types of podcasts and meet people that way. So if it's not wanting to start your own podcast because it is time, energy, and sometimes can be quite daunting starting a podcast, I find. you can always sort of dip your toes into the world without having to actually go and almost create a brand around your podcast.
And Dom, do you know any good agencies that do that?
I can think of one or two. You want me to help you out here?
No. We'll let them get there themselves. All good.
Okay, so well, thank you for that, because to me, podcasting is so important. And I'm actually writing a series of articles about podcast guesting, because people are making a lot of mistakes when it comes to being a podcast guest. And
interesting.
Yeah, I'll write some down and send them to you. You can do what you like with them, but I turn away some people because just the way they approached me.
Right. Okay.
Like, okay, now you made me mad. No, you cannot come on my show.
Yeah,
Or
that's
you're just not
interesting.
ready. You're not ready. And unfortunately, because podcasting is growing so dramatically, everybody wants to be a guest, or they want to be a host, or they want to be both. And I am all for getting your voice heard. But if you're not ready, you're not ready. So, and I had one man, bless him, he wanted to be on my show so bad. And he kept coming at me for about 3 years, and he had nothing. Yeah, he had nothing. His website was just a jumble. He kept saying, but Denise, I can talk about just about anything. He had nothing. And I finally said, call me, we'll talk. And I gave him homework. I said, listen, you need to do this with your website. You need to create a one sheet. You need to have 1 to 3 topics. You don't have any topics. You have no calls to action. You don't even have a really strong social media platform going on. And he said, okay. And he's working on his homework.
Yeah. And this is it. People, obviously we have these conversations all the time with Speak on podcasts. And a lot of, we naturally have a slightly inflated view of ourselves, a lot of us within business, and that's fine.
No.
I'll speak for myself.
Yeah. I kept quiet there.
All right, Dom. All right. I completely lost my train of thought. But what we do need to bring is we need to understand that you have to, again, it comes back to Dom, what you were saying, you have to be able to bring value. We know that, all right, we might not have specific calls to actions because we've obviously got a number of different businesses. This is very much around how we do things and wanting to present essentially just Dom and I and what we're trying to do rather than specific call to actions. We're not necessarily selling anything. The purpose of what we're doing, and we're quite transparent about it, is we are trying to get our voices out there and trying to tell more people about the portfolio of agencies that we're building. And what comes with that is, we'll be asked questions around, what it's like to work with family, and over a course of 45 minutes on 20 different podcasts, there's no facade. The mask, we can only be our true, authentic selves. And if then people are interested in working with us or want to work with one of the agencies or are interested in selling their agency, well, they know they're going to be speaking to the same Elle and Dom that they've listened to on this podcast. And that's the purpose of what we're trying to bring.
Well, let's move on then and talk about your agencies. You're using acquisitions to surpass the $1 million revenue milestone. Now I can't even talk. You guys talk. I'm going to mute myself.
Yeah. So this was never the plan. This was, and you'll probably hear a lot of people say that, but this was absolutely never the plan. If you would have said to me 3 years ago that buying an agency was an option, I'd have laughed and said, there's no way that we could do that because we don't have the cash. So the idea, I guess the first time the idea was even a possibility, Dom and I obviously started Social Chaps, and we were put under offer and accepted an offer by a private equity company where they offered to buy us out. We initially accepted. We had eventually decided to not go with it because it wasn't the right offer for us at the time. But that was the first time that we sort of had our eyes opened by the M&A space. And over the course of sort of the next 2-3 years, Dom and I were presented with a couple of opportunities, and we were thinking about, how else do we actually grow this company? How else do we grow our own portfolios? And decided to go on a bit of an acquisition trail, and have done exactly that. So we've now got 6 companies in the portfolio. Some we own the majority of, some we own the minority of. And every single deal that we've done is completely different. What we can do from mine and Dom's perspective is a lot of what typical agency founders can't do. So we love all things finance, sales, operations, and we can help an agency gear towards a bigger multiple or a bigger exit. And typically founders start an agency because they've been made redundant, or they don't want to work for anybody, and they start, I don't know, a branding agency because they love branding and that's what they're good at, and it starts out being just them, and they get 2 or 3 clients and they have to hire, and quite quickly they've got an agency that's doing $750,000 a year and they've got 20 staff, and that wasn't the intention. At which point we have a conversation with them and we help them break through that million revenue mark through our outbound strategies and our outbound mechanisms. And we help gear them towards a much more organized organization. That probably wasn't the best words to put together. Organized company, and help move them towards a potential exit. So they are the type of deals that we're doing.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Just quickly, and I think the interesting thing, which was touched upon briefly there, is when someone starts an agency, usually they're a specialist and they're doing what they love. What often happens is when you grow to, 15, 20 people, you stop doing the thing that you love doing and you end up just managing people. And they get into this sort of rut where, they are now running a business where they've got responsibilities, but they're doing the thing that they don't love. So it's getting them back to what they're good at, and putting in the right things in place to be able to build that business and get them back to enjoying themselves.
I was just going to ask you what advice you might have for others who are starting out and then they've grown and it's just out of control and they're no longer having fun, but you answered it without me even having to ask. So thank
Telepathic.
you. Your mind readers. Okay, so I have other questions, but honestly, we're going to run out of time very quickly. What are some of the current trends or developments that you're seeing? Let's talk about podcast industry, since you're on a podcast, you're a podcast agency. So let's talk about that. But what are some of the current trends or developments in that field that you're seeing, other than it's going to keep growing and get on YouTube? What advice would you give people who are saying, I need to get my voice heard?
Yeah, for me, the key thing with podcasting and especially for B2B, it's becoming their content arm of the business, instead of your traditional, creating some social media assets, creating a blog separately, creating, a social calendar. What they're doing is they're doing 1 to 2 podcasts a month. And off the back of that, they are writing 2 blogs. They're doing 5 videos, 5 images. They're getting, business leaders on that podcast. It's becoming their content pillar and their content arm of the business, which is really interesting. So some of the people we work with or we see in the industry, they're not so much bothered about being the biggest podcast in the world. They're, literally using it because it's the most efficient way to create multiple different assets, content assets.
And it's how they can reach their consumers or customers, their employees. And the thing about podcasting or listening to podcasts is you can walk the dog. You can be on a treadmill. You can
Absolutely.
You don't have to sit and read something or look at images. You can even listen on YouTube without watching. So, well, I don't know why anybody would say, "Oh, I can't do a podcast." They're frightened. I don't know why, but I agree with you on businesses. This is the best way to reach so many people.
Yeah, it's the future, and if it's not a podcast, it is some sort of content series which is similar to a podcast. If you don't want to go and put it on the likes of Spotify and brand it, then that is what we're seeing also in the industry, is people doing almost content series with business owners, which is also interesting.
And it's also
you've seen any of those.
I was just going to talk about because I think you've made that sound, whilst it's absolutely accurate, people might be listening thinking, well, that sounds like an awful lot of work to do 2 podcasts a month, then create a load of blogs off the back of it, and then create 5 videos, and then create 5 images. It sounds like a lot of work. However, you can get a small team around you, which is fairly cost effective, using websites like Upwork or Fiverr, where there are podcast content editors that will do this for a couple of $100 a month. There are AI tools where you drop the link of the episode into an AI tool, and it will spin out 4 or 5 different blogs based on topic of conversations that you've had on that podcast. Again, there are things that you can leverage that are fairly inexpensive to be able to create an awful lot of value, but also an awful lot of volume of content. If you were to use an agency and create that level of content, they would easily be charging thousands. And I can say that with confidence because we own one that does exactly that. But there are more cost-effective ways to produce that amount of content.
Yeah.
And, I do all of my own work. I'm a web developer. I'm not a podcaster. I don't make money doing this yet. I fully intend to down the road. But right now, I've been doing it because I love doing it. But everything that you ever see on social media was created by me. And honestly, it's not that difficult to do. You create a system, you create some templates in Canva, and off you go.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I guess that is the other movement in the space, is there's AI tools that can do a lot of the heavy lifting at the moment. And we're leveraging some of them and testing others. But they do help you move the needle in terms of efficiency.
They really do. I wanted to ask you guys before I let you go, what are some of in your opinion, what are some of your biggest achievements or accomplishments so far?
Oh,
Sorry.
Thanks for the warning, Denise. Oh,
we're at the end of it. I might as well just clobber you before I go.
I think, go on, Dom, you can go first.
Yeah, I think sort of going through an acquisition and going through that after only starting Chapman Capital in September, and we expected it to take about a year to do the first acquisition. We had the first one done and completed in December, and a fantastic business at that. We really sort of landed on our feet there.
Massively.
That's a fantastic achievement that we can sort of both be proud of.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. I think the other thing that I don't know whether this is an achievement, but I think it's something that I'm proud of. And I think it comes down to the values that we hold as a business. I'm proud of how Dom and I have set each company up in terms of the culture that they have. And they are very people first. They're very people oriented. Versus, don't get me wrong, we obviously want each company to be profitable and make money, but at the same time, I'm proud of how we look after people. We try and develop other human beings. We try to be personable as and when we can. Don't get me wrong, there are, we've obviously had to let people go. There are obviously people in the last 5 years that we've had to part ways with. However, I'm proud of the things that we've done, and I'm proud of the steps that we've made to have all of our companies as people first organizations and surround ourselves with quality human beings and help them in their lives. I'm proud of that.
Well, you should be. Listen, Elliot, Dom, I sincerely appreciate your company here today, and spending time with you has been a genuine pleasure. Would you mind sharing your online presence and preferred means of contact for anybody in our audience who would wish to learn more about you or work with you?
Yeah, for sure. So the best way to drop us a line is on LinkedIn. Both Dom and I are very active. Elliot Chapman, 2 L's, 1 T, and Dom Chapman. Hopefully you can spell Dom, D-O-M. And the best email is elliot@chapman.capital.
That's important. There is a Dominic Chapman on LinkedIn, and I accidentally connected with him before I thought it was the wrong.
Lucky chap.
It's Dom Montino. Yeah.
It is Dom. It is Dom, not Dominic.
I might go and connect with him now as well, actually. Worlds collide.
There you go. Well, listen, everybody, as we wrap up today's episode with my genuinely incredible guests, we're eager to hear your thoughts. So if you found their insights valuable and enjoyed the show, I invite you to connect with us by leaving a review and a rating on iTunes. Your feedback is crucial to our mission to inspire and empower more individuals on their journey to success. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave a review, and share your Partner in Success Radio with your friends and your colleagues. And let's keep this conversation going, and be sure to connect with Elliot and Dom Chapman on LinkedIn. And thank you for tuning in. Gentlemen, it has been a true pleasure speaking with you today.
Denise, thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffiths at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.